Chapter 90. Union. Tijon nodded slightly. It's very poetic. Nice, isn't it? So Union smiled slightly, still looking straight ahead while driving. I thought this name would make me a big star. In the end, I became a taxi driver. Tijon followed her and let out a few feeble chuckles, but in the next second, his face turned gloomy. Zhou Yunian, what are you joking about with me? What's wrong? Tijan stretched out his bloodless hand and pointed at the taxi driver's qualification certificate in front of him. A photo on it. This isn't you. Yes, this is my car. So my qualification certificate is hung here. Is there a problem? Zhou Yunian showed a puzzled expression. Don't play dumb with me. Tisha suddenly coughed a few times and then took a deep breath before saying, your qualification certificate is hung here, which means this car really belongs to you. Then who are you? Why is there a car belonging to you in this city? I don't understand. So Yunian shook her head. Sir, do you usually chat with others like this? How could a participant be brought here with a car? Tisha felt that his view of the world was about to shatter. Although it was a bit ridiculous to talk about the view of the world in this strange place, the existence of the woman in front of him was indeed beyond TXIA's understanding. He had originally thought that those natives who were like walking corpses were all former participants. They had stayed here for too long and thus gone mad and lost their way. And now there was someone like Su Yuniyang. Her behavior was very strange, but her mind was quite clear. She had her own property in this city. I really don't understand. So Yuniyang shook her head again. Sir, 是这个骗子. You'd better get off the car as soon as possible. Tijia shook his head vigorously, trying his best to stay awake. He also hoped that in this way, he could make sure that what he saw in front of him was not an illusion. So Yuniyang, he called out. What's the matter now? The woman in front of him no longer had the politeness she had before, and her tone was full of impatience. You drive a taxi. How many passengers can you pick up in a day? Tisha changed the topic and started chatting about daily life. After hearing this question, Zhou Yunian was obviously stunned, as if she had never thought about this question before. After pondering for a long time, she finally said, it seems you're my first passenger today. Then how many passengers can you pick up in a week? Tisha asked again. Zhou Yunian felt that there was a long hidden dark area in her mind, which was being slowly torn open by the man's questions one by one. Before meeting this man, she felt that everything was fine with her. But after meeting this man and just hearing a few questions, the painful memories in her mind poured out like a surging tide. It seems I haven't picked up a passenger in a week. Her expression began to look trance-like, and her eyeballs kept rolling as if she was thinking about something. Kishore realized that his questions were shaking the other person. So he continued to ask, what have you eaten and drunk this week? Where do you go after you finish work? So Yu Neon's expression gradually became flustered, and she was on the verge of breaking down. I haven't eaten anything for a long time. When there are no passengers, I just stay parked by the roadside. How long have you been parked by the roadside? Although PXIE's tone was calm, his whole body was covered with goosebumps. Fearing that he would hear some strange answer, a loud, screeching sound rang out as Zhu Yunian slammed on the brakes and stopped the car right in the middle of the road. She looked ahead with trembling lips, and her eyes became a bit different. There was emotion in her eyes, completely different from the walking corpses on the street. I've been parked by the roadside for 2 years, she shouted out in a hoarse voice and then burst into loud sobs. Oh my God. What's wrong with me? 2. PXIA's throat moved slightly as he swallowed. You haven't eaten, drunk, or slept, and you've been parked by the roadside for 2 years. She stretched out her hands and looked at them, and then she understood. It's this car. When I saw this car in the city, I was like being possessed. Is there anything strange about this car? Tijo asked. How could I see this car here? I don't. Zhu Yunian suddenly turned around and then noticed Kai's blood-stained clothes. You're injured. It's okay. T. Shaw shook his head. The injury is not serious. Are you sober now? Zhou Yuniang checked PXIA's injury with trembling hands and then found that the wound had been roughly treated. The whole piece of flesh had been burnt and festered by high temperature. Although the bleeding had stopped, the burn marks were very severe. You're so seriously injured. If we don't find medicine quickly. After saying that, she choked up. I almost forgot that there's no medicine here at all. Yes, this place doesn't have the conditions for us to survive at all. Tijal looked into the distance dejectedly. Su Yuniang, I don't have much time left. Could you do me a favor in the end? Tell me. Keep driving forward. Tijal said. I want to escape from here and see the edge of the city. Zhou Yunian looked at Tijal sadly, knowing that it was almost a miracle that he could still stay sober now. Okay, I'll take you to the edge of the city. You have to hold on. She shifted gears again and started the car rumbling wide. Tijal leaned his head against the car window and watched the scenery gradually receding outside. He coughed softly a couple of times, feeling that something was pressing on his trachea in his throat, making it extremely difficult for him to breathe. When his life was about to enter the countdown, what Keisha saw was not a revolving lantern of memories but those dilapidated, rapidly receding tall buildings. He remembered that day when he also got into a taxi and rushed to another city without hesitation. He had originally thought that when he returned to his hometown again, he and Yunianan could live a good life, but unexpectedly, on the empty street, Zhu Yunian drove the car very fast. He bit his tongue hard to keep his consciousness clear. Before long, his mouth was full of blood. Then he opened the car window and spat out a big mouthful of blood. Are you okay? Zhou Yunian asked anxiously. It's okay. Tisha wiped his mouth and said softly. I feel good now. I don't need to worry about surviving. I've never felt so relaxed these days. The two of them sped forward in silence. The car drove for nearly half an hour. Hey, are you still alive? Zhou Yunian slowed down the car, stretched out her right hand and kept shaking Kaizhou. We've reached the edge of the city. How are you going to escape? Tizhou used all his strength to turn his head and open his eyes, trying hard to look ahead. A few seconds later, his pupils gradually dilated. Right in front of him was a highway toll booth. A sign on it was already rusty and the words couldn't be made out. Looking along the highway toll booth, broad roads stretched out one after another. The roads extended in all directions and seemed to go on forever. In the distance, there were other tall buildings looming. So there's no edge here at all. PXIA's lips moved slightly, and he was once again crushed by the scene in front of him. The words of the human sheep once slowly rang in PXIA's ears. We are much more magnificent than religion. We have a whole world. Yes, if this was not a city but a world, how could one escape from it? Where are we going next? Zhou Yunian turned around to look at Tizhou, only to find that he was lying lifelessly on the seat. There was a hint of confusion, a hint of resentment, and a hint of unwillingness in his eyes. He didn't even close his eyes when he died.